Welcome to New Leaf. This is Module 2, Navigating the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. The central reality of the federal testing framework is simple. Your drug and alcohol violation record now permanently follows your commercial driver's license. It makes no difference which carrier you worked for when a violation occurred. Moving to a new state, finding a new employer, or simply letting years pass will not clear your history. By tying accountability directly to the license rather than the company file, the entire landscape of commercial driving compliance has changed. Before the Clearinghouse existed, a driver with an unresolved violation could easily slip through the cracks. That violation lived strictly in a physical paper file kept by the prior employer. A new employer was required to request those records before hiring, but the process of asking was inconsistent, and the responses sent back were often incomplete. This created a severe blind spot in the hiring process. Commercial drivers with active drug or alcohol violations could move between carriers without the new company ever knowing their history. That meant individuals actively prohibited from driving were getting right back behind the wheel of multi-ton moving steel on public interstates. The safety of the roads was dependent on a chain of paperwork. Accountability was tethered to a filing cabinet, rather than the person actually operating the vehicle. Building a centralized database to fix this vulnerability required a precise 8-year legislative path. In 2012, Congress passed the MAP 21 Act. This provided the initial authorization for the FMCSA to establish a national clearinghouse. 3 years later, the FAST Act escalated the initiative. It directed the FMCSA to actually build the system, legally requiring pre-employment queries and annual checks for all active drivers. By December 2016, the final clearinghouse rule was published. It defined exactly who had to report violations, who had to run queries, and how the entire database would operate. After years of construction, the FMCSA officially launched the system on January 6, 2020. The paper era was over. This timeline shows that the database is a legally mandated institution, deliberately built to close a well-documented loophole. This shows the immediate scale. In its first year, the Clearinghouse processed more than 64 million employer queries. Out of that volume, the system identified 40,000 drivers in prohibited status actively applying for or holding safety-sensitive positions. The entries triggering these hits are precise: confirmed positive drug test results, refusals to test, adulterated or substituted specimens, and alcohol test results of 0.04 or higher. 40,000 times in a single year, the digital database surfaced active regulatory violations that the old paper files had failed to catch. To surface those violations, employers use two distinct tools. First is the pre-employment full query, which every FMCSA-regulated employer must conduct before allowing a new hire to perform any safety-sensitive function. To view a full record, the employer must obtain the driver's specific electronic consent. Without a cleared query, the company cannot allow the driver behind the wheel. Refusing consent means legally disqualifying yourself from driving commercially for that employer. The second tool is the limited annual query. The same employer is required to run this check on every current driver once per year. Unlike the pre-employment check, this annual limited query does not require electronic consent to conduct. It serves as a routine tripwire to ensure nothing has changed since the driver was hired. If that limited check indicates a record exists, the employer must immediately remove the driver until the driver consents to a full query and the issue is resolved. Together, these two queries form an active, inescapable net of continuous compliance, monitoring drivers throughout a career rather than checking just once at hiring. The framework is now fully operational, and the burden of accountability rests securely on the individual commercial driver's license. The vast scare of the trucking industry can no longer be used as a hiding place. Changing companies and crossing state lines will not leave a violation behind. So what exactly happens when a new employer actually looks you up and sees a prohibited status on your record? In Module 3, we break down exactly what a prohibited status means, and we look at the exact interface prospective employers see when they query your record.